birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. I'm feeling good.
Not a cloud in the sky this afternoon as we approach the green flag for the 7th round of the Alpha Touring Challenge season 12, 13 races, and we're already halfway through it. It feels like time has absolutely flown by, but here we are at one of the staples of the series. It has appeared on every schedule except for season 10, so this would be our 11th visit to the circuit, and only a couple times have we done an endurance challenge here, but most times we've done a sprint challenge. This season it's no different. We've got 2 races coming up, a 30-minute race set by qualifying, and then a 20-minute race grid set by the results of the first race plus a top 9 invert. Let's take a look at the starting grid for this race. Your current championship leader, Michael Polasek, sits on pole position for this race. He currently holds a 32-point advantage over his teammate Logan McKenzie in the championship, and then 6 points further back is Micah Hendricks. And you have to go another 30 points to reach Francois Schenck. So he sits on pole alongside the Argentinian Gonzalo Fabi, who was just under 2/10 off of his time, and then you have to go another 2/10 back to find Micah Hendricks in 3rd place. Then you have James Carr, Augustin Fernandez, Francois Schenck, Edward Gorman, Manuel Saralecki, and then Logan McKenzie is down in 9th. So P2 in the championship, 7/10 off pole time. He's going to have some ground to make up in this race. And then Matt Zepka rounds out the top 10. Bertolucci, Harrison, Mayer, Slug, Acatella, Lazan, Mitchell, and Almeida. Raymond 2, and then you get down to P20 and you have Spencer Clark, the current Delta championship leader. He holds a very, very slim lead over Christian Ost and Brian Inagaki. The 3 drivers all covered by 4 points total. So Clark sits on Delta Pole for today, and then he'll have Cooper Akers and David Thomas behind him. Then you have Kyle Murray and Brian Inagaki, the next two Delta drivers. So Inagaki there just behind his championship rival. Then you have Brian Saab, Mark Darnell, Fuad Al-Rijla, Son Bonvicini, Castillo, Sedano, Gilbert, Lynn, Rickmeyer, Rakowski, and in second place in the championship, Christian Ost all the way down in 36th place without a time. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out for the Alpha Championship and for the Delta Championship. Very close battles going on in both. We now await the green flag here at Road Atlanta. And they are away. Green flag, and Michael Polasek is going to lead them away with Gonzalo Fabi alongside Micah Hendricks into turn number 1, side by side. Here they go. And Polasek's going to come out ahead. Fabi, and there goes James Carr going wide. He pushes it a little bit, and now they're going to come around the top of the hill. Polasek leads, and it's Fabi, Hendricks, Fernandez, Schink. We have another car going wide. And that's Damon Mitchell, and he'll have to find a place to rejoin. So here they come out of turn 5. And down into the keyhole they go now. You see a B4D car defending against the double yellow car there. That's Lazan ahead of Mike D'Almeida, and Spencer Clark on the outside of Alpha driver David Thomas. And Thomas is going to just stay ahead, but Clark keeps a nose in there. And the field comes out of the keyhole, and I see a car slow back there. It looks like it might be Jason Lynn. So here they come down to the chicane. Polasek still holds that lead over Fabi. And then you have Hendricks and Fernandez, and then Schink is rounding out the top 5. Going up the inside, you see James Carr on Ian Bertolucci. And he's going to get that move done and out of that corner, and he will expose Bertolucci to Connor Acatella. And Acatella will say, thank you very much. I'll take that as well. So here they come off the final corner. And the first lap around Road Atlanta has finished, and Ian Bertolucci under pressure from his teammate now. Matthew Mayer goes up the inside. And he's trying to hold on to the position. John Lazan trying to follow him through. Lazan and Bertolucci behind Lazan ahead of Mike D'Almeida here, and he is struggling here in the opening laps at Road Atlanta. He's lost 5 spots in this race so far. James Carr lost 8 in his little venture off-road on the first lap. And he is slowly clawing that back. He's looking at the left side of Anthony Harrison. And he's going to tuck back in. And Fuad Al-Rijla now behind Lewis Gilbert. Oh, there's contact behind. That's just Rakowski. And I'm not sure who she made contact with on the front straight. It may have been Castillo. But she's going to go in there too wide with Jason Lynn. And out of the keyhole, I think she's going to be able to stay ahead. Lynn keeping that nose in, but she chops off the front on exit, stays ahead. Here's Raymond 2 and Ian Bertolucci going wheel to wheel down to the chicane. Bertolucci, Mike D'Almeida got around him. Now Raymond 2 is going to go around him. Starting to wonder if the 51 might have an issue, but Raymond 2 goes a little deep into the corner, and now he's going to be exposed to Spencer Clark. Meanwhile, up ahead, James Carr finally getting ahead of Anthony Harrison out of the final corner. We go back to Spencer Clark. He's right in between 2, and that's David Thomas behind, so he will go defensive, maybe trying to attack 2, and oh, look at this, Bertolucci goes off. Raymond 2 goes off a little bit following him, but Bertolucci is the man who's in real trouble. Now Raymond 2 is in a lot of trouble. Look at this, can he save it? Oh no, and Mark Darnell, a little bit of contact there too, just couldn't gather it up, and hopefully Mark Darnell doesn't have too much damage from that. Ian Bertolucci will pick up a couple more of those spots as a result. It looks like Logan McKenzie got around Manuel Saralegui and is up into 7th. 2 spots gained since the start of this race. Now Zepka is behind Saralegui, and that is this top 9 is sort of separated from the rest of the field. And speaking of separated, Polasek and Fabi are well away from Hendricks and Fernandez and the rest. Feels like Fabi may just be trying to hold on to Polasek here. And lap 1, looks like our only retirement so far is Damon Mitchell. So through 3 laps at Road Atlanta, Michael Polasek holds on to a slim lead over Gonzalo Fabi. And look at this, McKenzie going up the inside of Edward Gorman. This is for P6. And in turn 1, he forces Gorman off his line a little bit. Will he try something up into the next corner? No, he's going to tuck back in. And he's going to wait, have another go later on. We look back at John Lazan, and I see, oh, that's a lapped car. Damon Mitchell letting cars by. And we're looking at the slug. He is currently under pressure from James Carr. And the double yellow driver has a rear view full of breakfast for dinner. But we look back at Logan McKenzie because Sarah Legge's looking up the inside, going into the keyhole. Both of them managed to hold it, so here we go. Sarah Legge really sends it in. Out of turn 7, they're going to be wheel to wheel, and Edward Gorman is loving this, and we're going to go on board with Matt Zepka. Who's he going to favor here? He looks left. McKenzie has a bit of a run. He's about to clear Sarah Legge. Now Sarah Legge getting the side draft down to the chicane. Here we go. The 0-1 on the left side here, and into the braking zone. They could not be more even. And they may have touched a little bit. They do touch a little bit. And Sarah Legge trying to get ahead, just can't. And McKenzie keeps it in there. And they are dead even again as they come under the Fox Factory sign. Now Sarah Legge will pull ahead, but McKenzie will go for a little over-under out of the final quarter. Will he have the momentum? He's going to keep the nose in. Will Sarah Legge leave him the space? No. McKenzie tucks back in. He didn't have to leave McKenzie the space. He thinks better of it. So that battle ends for now. Sarah Legge back into 7th place. And we look back to the battle for 3rd. Sarah Legge's teammate, Augustin Fernandez, has not been able to put Micah Hendricks under pressure for this 3rd position yet. Francois Schink is there if either of them start fighting. So they may be trying to think this one through. We look back at the Delta leader, Spencer Clark, under a little bit of pressure from Alpha driver David Thomas, but he's really worrying about Brian Inagaki, who's 2 spots behind him, both in this race and in the championship. Yes, in the championship, only 4 points behind him in the title race. So he's looking at him in his rear view for certain. And we look back to the slug. He's getting a little bit of slipstream from McKenzie and Zepka up ahead. This whole row of cars you're seeing on your screen is sort of loosely connected by the slipstream, just enough. And you see the slug actually flashing Zepka a little bit into the corner, saying, I need to get a move on here. We look back at Daniel Cedeno. He's looking at the rear end of a damaged Veloster. That's Nicholas Bonvicini. And Cedeno does not go for the attack, but Bonvicini is probably down on straight line speed, knowing that damage. And Hendricks still hanging out ahead of the ATR Argento's car of Augustin Fernandez. James Carr is right on the back of the slug. We'll follow him through the S's. And now into the keyhole. He's still following the 14. And this is the part of the race where Road Atlanta becomes sneakily difficult to pass. And everyone's sort of in a small little slipstream train. What a lot of guys are waiting on now. We're only 8 minutes into this race. There's still 22 minutes to go. There's time for a little bit of patience here. A little bit of waiting for people to fight, lose some slipstream up ahead, and then go for the move. Behind, Lewis Gilbert off track. We saw him following Cedeno and Bonvicini earlier, but he's ended up in the gravel pit on the outside of the keyhole. And based on his direction, I can't imagine he ended up there under his own power. The slug may finally be under pressure here from Carr, and Carr thinks about sending it up the final corner, but he didn't really have enough overlap to do it. We'll look back at Bonvicini. It looks like Cedeno has cleared him going into the chicane. So that's Cedeno up to P5 in the Delta class. The Delta podium right now, Brian Saab is P3. his teammate Brian Inagaki, you see in P2 right there, and then Spencer Clark is just up the road in P1. And now, James Carr's had an issue. He's lost the slug. He's gone off track. Lazon, Mayer, Acatella, Harrison, they've all gone around him. And the slug's lost a little bit of ground to Zepka, so I wonder if the two came together somehow. They haven't lost too much ground. But looking at Sector 1, the slug was on pace. Sector 2, 3/10 down, so maybe something happened there. Looking back at the battle for P3, Fernandez still hanging out behind Hendricks. Schenk desperately holding on here. And 1/3 of the way through this contest now. Matt Zepka's now right on the back of Logan McKenzie, and the two series managers might be about to go at it. It's not a battle we see super often, but McKenzie down on pace today. Doesn't typically perform well at Road Atlanta despite having 4 wins to his name here. And actually, the driver with the most wins here all time is the Slug, with 5 total to his name. And Hendricks is under a lot of pressure from Fernandez here, and I wonder if Fernandez at some point just waiting for Hendricks to make a mistake. He's got a lot of time to wait and see if he gets a tire advantage. Over 30 minutes, if your opponent is wearing their tires or pushing them out of the window, you know that the effects of that can become apparent quite quickly towards the end of these 30-minute contests. We bounce back to Ian Bertolucci on a bit of a recovery drive. 10 spots down from where he started. He's sitting behind Cooper Akers, Inagaki, and Thomas, so he may disrupt Inagaki's hunt for the Delta lead here a little bit. Although Spencer Clark, his pace is looking pretty superior right now, pulling away. He's been faster than Inagaki the last couple of laps, 4/10 faster the last time around. And Gorman is going to come under pressure from Sarah Leggy. Oh, Sarah Leggy getting a big slide, but gathers it up and guns it out of the corner. And Gorman under immense pressure. Always good to see Edward Gorman pop into the series. And Cooper Akers is under pressure from Ian Bertolucci, but he defends. Bertolucci not able to pass him through the chicane, and Bertolucci's actually going to lose a good bit of ground. So out of the final corner, Cooper stays ahead. Connor Acatella is under pressure from Matthew Mayer. Mayer's been bottled up behind him for some time in this race. And Acatella has just been trying to follow Anthony Harrison throughout this contest. And Harrison is closing up to the back of the Slug. The Slug has now firmly lost the slipstream of Zepka and McKenzie ahead. So he's a bit more vulnerable now. Sarah Leggy, is he going for a move? No. Just trying to scare Gorman off his line into the keyhole. The Slug will let Anthony Harrison through. I wonder if that may have been a slowdown being served. So Harrison gets through without contest. That puts him up into the top 10 in this race. Look back at the battle for top 10 in the Delta class. Jess Rakowski has had Brian Son, Jason Lynn, Mitchell Rickmeyer all stacked up behind her for a little bit. And there's some trees. And there's some cars. Rakowski on the inside of the track defending against Brian Son. And usually the inside car is going to have a pretty good advantage there. Rakowski manages to take advantage of that advantage, and onto the backstretch she goes, staying ahead for P9 in the Delta class. We jump back. There's a lot of battles erupting up here. Fernandez is right in the back of Hendricks. Gorman lost out to Fernandez. So now McKenzie. Oh, McKenzie's going to try and go around Gorman out of turn 1. This battle closed McKenzie and Zepka back up to the 2 of them. So here we go. For 7th place, Sarah Leggy is going to bolt it, as he has left Gorman to deal with McKenzie and Zepka behind. And further ahead, Fernandez has not gotten to Hendricks yet, but this is all allowing Anthony Harrison to close up to the back of this group. For example, Harrison was 2/10 faster than Edward Gorman on that last lap, and if this whole group starts fighting, that could help him gain a few more spots before the end of this race. Michael Polasek has firmly driven away from Gonzalo Fabi at this point. It's a 1.8 second advantage, and Fabi lost a lot of that on the last lap, 3/10 slower. So he's really struggling to keep up. Gorman and McKenzie going side by side in the chicane. Gorman will defend on the left side. McKenzie outbreaks him, and by the time they get to the apex, he is ahead. And that is a pretty clean move for both of them. You gotta wonder if Gorman knew he was beat and helped McKenzie out a little bit there, and trying to make sure he did not also lose a spot to Zepka. And now we jump to Cooper Akers, wherever that is. That is Inagaki and Akers out of the final chicane. Akers trying to stay ahead. He's been working on this for some time, and he does get ahead of Inagaki here. That is Cooper Akers up into P19 overall. And just behind, Mark Darnell on the inside of Ian Bertolucci through turn 1. The 83 trying to get in between these two cars here. Raymond 2 is the lead car in this little train. And back to Connor Acatella. Matthew Mayer trying to force him off his line as they close up to the back of the slug. There's a lot of cars still very close together here. You got several huge groups, and we look at the camera as these cars go past what is technically turn 9. A lot of pretty big groups. Matt Zepka may be looking for a little dive on Gorman, but no. I'm not able to do anything with it. Gorman does go a little deep there, so if Zepka gets a good run, there could be something for him in the final corner, but he's not going to take it, so we'll jump back to Brian Inagaki, who's being pushed by his teammate Brian Saab into the chicane in an effort to help him out in his fight with Cooper Akers, but Akers is going to take a very strong line through there. Well done by him. Inagaki is going to get another push by Saab. Out of the final corner, here comes Raymond 2. He arrives on the scene in the battle for the top 20. Across the start-finish with just over 13 minutes to go. And 2's going to make a move on Brian Saab. And that was an opportunistic move. Well done by him. And that's going to push him up into 21st. Inagaki still holding on to 20th in P2 in the Delta class. Spencer Clark has a nearly a 9-second lead at this point. So I think Inagaki and Saab firmly racing just to stay on that Delta podium for the moment. And then further back, this battle for Delta 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. These guys are still fighting super closely. Jason Lynn's at the front of that pack now. And then Micah Hendricks. I think what you're seeing here is a very strong performance, not just from Micah Hendricks, but from the Audi. We know it's strong out of turn 7. It gets a good run down the back stretch, and I think it's keeping him, as long as he doesn't get a bad run out of the keyhole, he'll be able to keep Fernandez behind. Fernandez, if he wants to pass Hendricks, he's going to have to catch him unawares at some other point in the track. That is going to be difficult. Jumping back to Matthew Mayer, we'll go on board with him as he is following Connor Acatella. Looking to the right. Can't find the space to put his car there, though. And now Brian Saab has lost out to... Oh, no! Raymond 2, Brian Saab, they may have come together. There's a wreck on the front stretch, but 2 has been turned around backwards. Brian Saab has damage. And yes, he's going to have to go straight on. Ian Bertolucci went around those 2 at the time. I'm not sure that's related. But yes, both those 2 are now out of the race. Look at the back of this train. Let's go on board with John Lazan. You can see the huge row of cars that is ahead of him. down to turn 10. That row stays the same. Hendricks has now pulled a little bit of a gap to Fernandez. It is a half second. And then further back, Zepka may be looking for something on Gorman into turn 1. This is the battle for 8th. Oh, there's a little bit of contact, and Zepka is going to go around. Gorman is into the grass, and he is going to try and rejoin safely here as all these cars scramble, trying to figure out where they should put themselves. Gorman rejoins just behind Anthony Harrison. Zepka is back on track now in P18. And that helps out Spencer Clark. Your Delta leader picks up another position from Matt that P2 does not. And that has kind of stacked up these guys because I think they were all being a little careful watching Gorman go off track and wondering where he was going to rejoin. Now with 10 minutes to go, Gorman is the lead car in this group. And these guys are all right on top of each other. Slug, will he go for a move into turn 10? He looks to the left. Gorman's going to choose the right side of the track. You have a whole lot of people waiting behind them if this goes wrong for whatever reason. And here they come into 10A. Slug's going to clear him and keep him behind him. And Gorman will be able to defend everyone behind. So both of them have managed to do that without setting off the horde just behind. Although Gorman will have to defend a little bit to turn 1. Acatella. Oh, he's actually going for a move on the Slug. And he overcooks it a little bit. The Slug will be able to easily over-under this. And that's going to stack everyone up. They think about going 3 wide. Acatella with contact. Gorman has to go off track again after that contact. And Mayer's going to go through on Acatella along with Carr and Lazan. And now Mayer's going to go 2 wide with Gorman around him through the S's, and what a bold move. That separates him from the rest of that pack. Gorman falling like a stone here, and he has stacked up Carr and Lazan and Acatella behind. And that could end up, it ended up being a lot worse for all of those drivers involved. But now you have Gorman and Carr leading this little troop. And Matthew Mayer, I'm not sure he's actually going to get away here. He's got the Slug about a second up the road. Hendricks could be under some pressure here. That was a 2/10 gap into the chicane. So Fernandez getting fairly close by the end of this one. Will he have something into turn 1? It would be beneficial for him if he could pull a move off in a spot of the track like this, where the Audi straight line speed can't quite negate like a good run out of a corner. Edward Gorman pitting now. I think he may be serving a penalty. Santiago Castillo and Kyle Murray side by side into the chicane. This is for 24th. And Castillo's going to stay ahead. And Gorman is passing his pit stall. So that is a drive-through. He's hit the incident limit. And I'm not surprised that he picked up 12 incidents through all those off tracks. Something's happened here. Manuel Saralegui has, I think McKenzie has just caught him over the course of a couple laps. Because Harrison has lost ground to both of them. So I don't think something has happened to Saralegui so much as McKenzie has caught up to him. 7 minutes to go. Both the ATR Argento's cars are in a fight. Fernandez attacking, Saralegui defending. And then you have the 2 double yellow cars, Mike De Almeida and Connor Acatella, rearing up the back of this field that is headed by the 3rd double yellow car, the Slug. Edward Gorman has emerged from the pits just behind Mark Darnell, so he'll immediately go to battle with the SIA driver. And into the chicane. He's on the left side. Darnell has a slight advantage, but under the brakes, Gorman will go ahead. And Acatella and Mike De Almeida, I don't think these guys are going to fight. Mike De Almeida very close behind him, but does not send it. Sarah Leggy still ahead of McKenzie for the moment. And Augustin Fernandez is holding, or excuse me, Hendricks is holding a decent gap over Fernandez, half a second. Michael Polasek has holds a big lead. Oh, Cooper Akers is off track. He's gone wide in turn 1, and oh, a big jump on the rejoin. Ian Bertolucci will pass him as a result of that. Matthew Mayer has closed up to the back of the slug along with James Carr. So some of that group is going to come back together again here. We are hitting the 5 minutes to go mark. And Michael Polasek is about to come across the start-finish line. So we should have 4 laps to go in this contest. Probably 21 laps total, if I'm doing my head math right. We'll look back at Matt Zepka because he and David Thomas on the backstretch. They're heading around turn 9 into the braking zone. The Sia driver on the left side. But Thomas goes in with a lot of momentum and a little bit of contact there as Thomas tried to park it on the apex. And Zepka tried to kind of get around the outside of him. He's going to keep the momentum and still through the last corner, Zepka around the outside of Thomas. And he's done it. Through turn 1. He holds on to 16th place. The slug now under a lot of pressure from Mayer and Carr. And that's the gearbox. Can't get much closer than that. And Sarah Leggy may be under some pressure here from McKenzie as they come through the keyhole. We'll look at his gearbox camera. So a couple of close battles here at the end of this race. P6, Sarah Leggy and McKenzie. Then you have P9, that's Slug, Mayer, Carr, Acatella, and Mike D'Almeida are battling for 13th. And then you have Akers and Gorman. They might be side by side right now. Yes, through the keyhole. Gorman trying to attack on the outside, get a little crossover on the exit. And he will surely be attacking Akers on this lap. Mayer and Carr going wheel to wheel. And Carr will slot ahead into the chicane. Back to Gorman and Akers. Gorman on the left. And under braking, Akers holds it well. And I think he's going to be able to clear Gorman. He's certainly going to try. And he's pulled it off. Matt Zepka is now on pit road, and I think he is having to serve a drive-through for incident points as well. Will James Carr try something here? Not through the S's. Slug holding on to 9th. Sarah Leggy with McKenzie very close behind him. Polasek is coming into the chicane now. We will have 2 laps to go this time by. I don't think McKenzie's going to be close enough to do something on this lap, but James Carr will be. We'll make sure McKenzie doesn't do anything here. Will he look to the left? A little defense from Sarah Leggy. Slug defending on the left side. Carr on the right. They are even on the brakes. And I think Carr's going to be able to have the momentum. He gets a huge shove from Matthew Mayer. That was the push he needed. And now through the last corner. Oh, he has to serve a drive-through. And they go 3 wide. And Mayer goes through. The Slug losing out here. And John Lazan goes through. What is happening? Carr having to serve a drive-through. So his day is he's going to get sent back to where Matt Zepka was. Zepka's down in 22nd. Polasek coming out of the keyhole now. He'll get the white flag this time by. Micah Hendricks still holds a 4/10 second gap. James Carr has emerged just behind Ian Bertolucci, right on his back bumper. So still something to fight for at the very end of this race. And into the chicane. Here comes the 45. He now has a 5.5 second advantage over the next closest competitor, that is Gonzalo. And now he'll come through the final corner to pick up what will be the white flag for the 45. 1 lap to go here at Road Atlanta. Logan McKenzie attacking Saraleggi through the final corner. He set up Saraleggi for an over-under. Will he do something in the final, the actual final corner, not the final chicane? Saraleggi on the inside. McKenzie getting the white flag in the battle for P6. Saraleggi defends right. McKenzie on the left into turn number 1. McKenzie trying to keep a nose in, but he just can't do it. The slug now coming down to serve a drive-through. Will stay here. The 128 has kept the reigning champion behind him thus far. Hendricks is also under a lot of pressure up ahead. He's going to have to defend against Augustin Fernandez into the keyhole on the final lap. Fernandez hanging it around the outside as hard as he can. He keeps it there. He's going to be able to force Hendricks off the optimal line. He'll keep it on the outside, and he is close enough to try something on this final lap. He has given himself a chance to get on this podium. Coming down the back straight away. The Audi power can't save Hendricks now. There's the side draft for the ATR Argento's Veloster. The track will bend to the right, helping him out even more. They're dead even going into the chicane on the final lap. A little bit of contact. Fernandez, Hendricks, side by side under the Fox Factory sign for the final podium spot. Who's it gonna be? It's gonna be Hendricks by just inches. And the winner here at Road Atlanta, Michael Polasek by 5.5 seconds. Gonzalo Fabi another 5 seconds down the road. And then Micah Hendricks seals off your podium with that move. Saraleggi stays ahead of Logan McKenzie. Matthew Mayer stays ahead of John Lazan.
What in the fuck?
And Spencer Clark comes through.
Thanks, brother. That was nice of you.
And Spencer Clark will come through to take home another Delta victory for him this season. And he is victorious. Brian Inagaki down in 22nd. Clark showed why he is in the lead of this championship right now. Absolute class. We will return shortly for a 20-minute race, which will see Matthew Mayer and Anthony Harrison start on the front row. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And it is now time for the second race of the evening. This one taking place in the evening. The sun beginning to set here at Road Atlanta. Matthew Mayer on pole with Anthony Harrison alongside him. We're waiting for them to finish gridding, and then we'll have 20 minutes of racing. And it will be Logan McKenzie starting third behind them. And then Manuel Saraleggi. Here we go. Waiting for the green flag. And they hold them for a while. Matthew Mayer is away. Harrison and McKenzie side by side. McKenzie going through. Now here comes Saraleggi. Harrison, Saraleggi, side by side through turn 1. And they come together. And they're both going to go off track. Schenk, Hendricks go through. Harrison sent off track. Saraleggi's going to rejoin as the whole field flies by him. 2, 3, 4 wide. Coming up into the next corner. And they've managed to mostly avoid catastrophe. Coming through the S's, Matthew Mayer leads with Logan McKenzie behind him. Anthony Harrison has been demoted quite far down the order. It looks like he's currently in 29th. And I see another car parked up there. That's Nicholas Bonancini. So he is trying to get his car started back. You see the Delta winner of the first race Spencer Clark on the inside of James Carr in P14. He had a big starting advantage over the rest of the Delta field because of how far ahead he was at the end of the last race. You have Kyle Murray all the way back there. That's his next closest Delta competitor for this race. Heading into the chicane for the first time, you see Gonzalo Fabi on the outside of Michael Polasek, just behind Augustin Fernandez. Those two are going to go wheel to wheel. And for now, Fabi's going to stay ahead. Fabi, I think, knows Polasek had a bit of pace on him in the last race, so he's got to keep him back there. Raymond 2 is going to go around Jess Rakowski into the chicane, and now Fuado Rijla, he has damage. Mitchell Rickmeyer is going to go around him as a result. So we are through a lap of racing here at Road Atlanta, an eventful lap of racing. We had Anthony Harrison and Emmanuel Saralegui make contact over the same piece of track in the middle of the road, and it's allowed Mayer and McKenzie to kind of get away a bit here at the start of the race while the rest of the field battles it out behind. Francois Schenck is currently trying to hang on to the leaders. He's got Micah Hendricks waiting right behind him if the opportunity arises. Matt Zepka is on the outside of David Thomas out of turn 5, and he will clear him by the time they get to the keyhole. So that's a position gained for Zepka. Now looking up at Connor Acatella, he has Edward Gorman directly behind him. And directly ahead of him, John Lazan. Very similarly colored cars, but Lazan is the breakfast for dinner driver. Gorman, a privateer. And they're all battling for 8th position right now. The battle for the lead. McKenzie not making a move on Mayer this lap. He was fairly close. And behind, Polasek has a run on Fabi, but he's not going to be able to go anywhere with it. He'll certainly try, though, to put a nose around the outside, but nowhere to go with it. And now for the lead, Matthew Mayer has McKenzie on his inside. Here they go into turn number 1. And Mayer puts his tire right on that curb. Here goes McKenzie to the right side, looking for space. He puts the nose in. Mayer cuts him off. Schenck tries to put the nose in there, and McKenzie cuts him off. Big contact. They all managed to survive that. Looking back at Saralegui, he is behind Bertolucci and Mike De Almeida heading into the S's. That's a tight group of cars there. They are practically touching, and now the double yellow drivers will have to split and go side by side towards the keyhole. Saralegui goes right, Bertolucci goes left, Saralegui goes in really deep, and he's going to have to really park it on the apex, lose out to Acatella, but he may still be able to get around Mike De Almeida, and on exit, they are going to be side by side. Bertolucci right behind, wondering what do I have to do? What do I have to do to try and get around these guys? Francois Schenck may be under pressure here from Micah Hendricks into the final chicane. Hendricks, he knows he has the pace. If he can get around McKenzie soon, he might be able to go ahead and win this race. Because I don't think either of the two cars ahead of him are faster than him. And now he has cleared Schenck. Augustin Fernandez is in a position here to also go around Schenck. Gonzalo Fabi having to defend against Michael Polasek behind. And Polasek basically shoving him into turn number 1. The little bump and run maneuver. It's not going to work this time. We look back to Kyle Murray. He's in P2 in the Delta class, trying to make his way up towards Delta leader Spencer Clark and prevent him from making a sweep. And then you have Christian Ost, who climbed all the way up from last place in starting the first race in last place to now he is up to 21st in this race. Spencer Clark, meanwhile, he's under pressure from his own teammate. Matt Zepka goes around him on the right side on the exit of turn 5, and I think Clark will be happy to not fight that too much. So we look back to the battle for the lead. Matthew Mayer came very close to winning in Indianapolis, and in the end, with a couple laps to go, McKenzie was able to secure the lead and deny him his first career victory. Now he finds himself leading yet another race in the Alpha Touring Challenge. Augustin Fernandez, meanwhile, looking to get around Schenck here so he can go join the battle for the lead. And up the inside, he gets around Schenck fairly easily. And McKenzie's going to be under pressure from Hendricks. McKenzie has failed to get around Mayer at the start of this race and open up any kind of gap, and now he may pay for it. Meanwhile, we have championship leader Michael Polasek finally alongside Gonzalo, and he will make the move into turn one. Fabi will try the little over-under move, and he gets back alongside Polasek. Oh, and he just has to back out of it, not able to keep enough of a nose in. Matthew Mayer is under a lot of pressure through the S's now. Who will crack first, Mayer or McKenzie? Christian Ost is gaining a few spots. Now he goes around Raymond too. I saw him gain a couple of spots back there. And then that's Cooper Akers ahead of Kyle Murray there, still battling for P19. We go back to the battle for the lead. Out of the keyhole, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cars all lined up. Hendricks with a slightly suboptimal exit there. That's going to help McKenzie out. Because now he has a little bit of breathing room to go after Mayer here. We go on board with him, but they are going to go wheel to wheel down to the chicane. So here we go, the first attempt at a pass to the lead in this race. 7 minutes in, 13 to go. Mayer a bit deeper on the brakes. McKenzie's going to try and cross him over here. And on exit, Mayer manages to keep a decent run up. And I think McKenzie's not going to be able to get around him. He puts a nose around the outside. And he forces Mayer to take a suboptimal line through the last corner, so it is on around the outside of turn number 1. They are 2 by 2. Hendricks waiting for a mistake from one of these drivers. Fernandez is there as well. McKenzie goes around the outside of the 12 for the lead at Road Atlanta. The 0-1 ahead as they come up through turn 3, and they've done it without Hendricks being able to pass either of them. So that is huge for both of those drivers. They've managed to do that without losing any time. And for McKenzie, he knows now there's a car between him and Hendricks, but for how long? James Carr, we're looking at him in 13th. He's sitting just behind Mike D'Almeida. Might be looking for a peek into the keyhole, thinks better of it. He'll be trying to stay close enough to do something into the chicane. Kyle Murray has just had an incident. We see some tire tracks back there, so I think he went wide at turn 15, or turn 5, excuse me. Matthew Mayer is going to be under pressure from Micah Hendricks. So this is Micah's big chance to get around Mayer and go after McKenzie for the lead of this race. He has plenty of time to do it. Mayer's going to keep a nose in the inside. And now Hendricks going to try and beat him on the exit of the corner. They're going to come together. Fernandez goes by. They both make huge contact with the wall. And major damage to the SRG car and the Croc Promotions car. And I think Francois Schink was involved in what as well. Yes, he picked up damage and parked it immediately. Now Gonzalo Fabi and Michael Polasek are going wheel to wheel again. After all of that, it has allowed Fabi to get alongside. And now through turn 1, he leaves Polasek just enough space. This is helping McKenzie and Fernandez out ahead. Oh, look at that move! Fabi hip checking Polasek off track. Polasek hip checks Fabi off track. They come together through the S's, through the entry, and now they come across in front of John Lazan. Lazan gets clipped by Fabi. What is happening anymore? Nobody's trying to stay on track. And they're 3 wide. They're leggy on the inside. He thinks better of doing that. Fabi's going to get around, stay around. That's Edward Gorman. Lazan trying to finish the move on Michael Polasek. But Polasek will get the better run out of the corner. So now Polasek is in 3rd place, but will he be able to hold this? That is a lot of cars behind him. Looking at the gearbox, you'll see the slipstream come into play for Lazan. And he's going to have to do something with it because Gonzalo Fabi is going to make a move up the inside. He knows he has to chase Polasek immediately. But Lazan, a slightly better exit, and that will expose Gonzalo to Edward Gorman. So they will go side by side through the last corner. A huge curb cut for Gorman, and he manages to survive that. Fabi will move to the inside. A little block from Gorman. And he's going to make contact, having to go in so shallow with John Lazan. I can't believe this group is still fighting. Oh, and that's a car going wide. That's, I think it's a lapped car, actually. So we'll stay with this group. Fabi not able to stay with Saralegui, and he's dropped all the way back to P7 now. And I don't think that was a lap car, actually. That was Mike D'Almeida. And now Lazan's gone wide, and that is going to cause a whole lot of chaos here. Lazan slips behind Gorman and Saralegui. Fabi wanted to move there into the keyhole, but wasn't able to get it. This whole group is shuffling like crazy. And now a late move from Gonzalo. And these two are going to go side by side now. Down the back straightaway, you have Polasek getting away from this group, which is now led by Gorman and Saralegui, going around the lapped car of Matthew Mayer ahead. But we're looking at Lazan, we're looking at Fabi. Oh, some contact with Mayer ahead, and those two are in trouble. Car collected, huge crash at Road Atlanta, and that is... was that Ian Bertolucci? No, that was Mayer avoiding more of the crash. It's Bertolucci and Mike D'Almeida going by. And that has taken out several cars there. It's freed Gorman and Saralegui to go following Polasek up the road. And meanwhile, McKenzie still in the lead of this race, 12 minutes in. But Augustin Fernandez is right on his tail. We'll jump back to the Delta leader, Spencer Clark. After all that carnage, he has been promoted all the way up into P10, and Christian Ost is P14. So these Delta drivers trying to make big bank off of the points that the Alpha drivers are letting go. And look at this, 5 Alpha drivers towed over the course of the last lap and a half. Just a carnage-filled lap. But guys like Spencer Clark, they're loving it. And Bertolucci is under a little bit of pressure from Zepka into the keyhole. Zepka's not going to go for it. Bertolucci chasing Mike D'Almeida right now. And he's had an up and down season, but overall sitting in P5 at the moment. He's only had one race where he scored less than 86 points. Or one round, excuse me. And he's on pace for another good day today. Running in 7th overall at the moment. McKenzie out of the chicane, still ahead of Fernandez here. If they start fighting, Polasek is only 3 seconds back. And that's not a huge amount of time, because you can lose up to a second just fighting once through like the final chicane. Saralegui hasn't gotten a chance at Edward Gorman yet. We look at Brian Son and Jess Rakowski going into the chicane wheel to wheel. This is the battle for 5th in the Delta class. A little touch. And they're still going to be going at it. They come down the hill under the Fox Factory billboard. You see Son has a good bit of damage there. Oh, right across Rakowski's front bumper. And Son, well, he has a lot more rear bumper damage now. He doesn't have a rear bumper at all, actually. And that is going to be his race done. We've seen a lot of really violent crashes in this race thus far. Matt Zepka is on the left side of Bertolucci into the keyhole as Connor Acatello flashes his lights behind. He can't do anything with the SRG driver. He goes a little wide. But I don't think that's going to be enough to open the door to Acatello behind. Saralegui might be within spitting distance of Gorman here as they come into the chicane. He's going to go for a move. And no, actually, he sticks behind Gorman. And that's the battle for 4th. McKenzie's under a lot of pressure. And into turn 1, Fernandez is going to have his first real chance at the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver. 15 minutes in, 5 minutes to go. Into turn number 1, McKenzie taking a big wide line. And Fernandez on that shallower line, I don't think he's going to be able to do anything about it. And he does stay ahead of, McKenzie stays ahead of Fernandez there. And Saralegui not able to do anything with Gorman on this lap. So we'll jump to Kyle Murray and Raymond 2. They're going through turn number 1. And Murray holding that inside line. But who is going to have the advantage through this next corner? 2 holds it through turn 3. Zepka is now slipped back towards Connor Acatello. With just a couple of minutes left. I mean, it's like 3, maybe 4 laps to go here. We'll do the math in a second when the leaders come back across the line. but a real sense of urgency for these drivers. Every position is worth points, and there are a lot of drivers running very closely to each other right now on track. McKenzie could be under pressure here again. Polasek has cut that gap in half. It's now a second and a half. McKenzie's in the middle of the track, forcing Fernandez to pick a side. Fernandez doesn't pick a side. He tucks back in. Fernandez does not have a career victory in the AlphaTauri Challenge as of yet. He came very close last season. Last season, he ended up inverted close to pole for the Suzuka race, and then ended up driving away after some incidents and had a 15-second lead at one point. Mechanical failure, didn't win the race. So it feels like the series owes him one. It feels like he is owed one, and if he could just get around McKenzie here, he could pull off that first career victory. McKenzie's already denied one driver, their first career victory this season, Matthew Mayer back in Indianapolis, and McKenzie wins this race. It'd be a twofer. Back-to-back wins where McKenzie has denied drivers their first career victory. And looking at the time left, when they get back to the line, it will probably be 2 laps to go. But we'll keep an eye on that. Lewis Gilbert has just hit pit road. And that is a drive-through, so he exits from the top 5 of the Delta class and comes out P9. Let's see the battle between Rakowski and, well, yeah, that's right. Brian Sawn ended up in the wall. McKenzie's under pressure, but Fernandez thinks better of it. And now Polasek is on the back of them, so this gets interesting. Fernandez is in a bit of trouble because any move that he tries to put on McKenzie puts him at risk of getting passed by Polasek. And McKenzie and Polasek are almost certainly, as teammates, communicating. So the difficulty of this pass has gone up a little bit for the Argentinian. The sun is setting here in Brazelton, Georgia. A beautiful evening as we watch the 3 leaders of this race come through the S's. For the penultimate time, they will be getting the white flag next time by. Behind them, Fernandez's ATR teammate, Saralegui, running ahead of Gorman. He did get ahead of Gorman there eventually. You have Mike D'Almeida, Ian Bertolucci, Zepka, Acatella, and your Delta leader, Spencer Clark, who is still a good 7 seconds ahead of Christian Ost. So if he could keep this one on track, the Delta sweep is pretty much locked in for Clark thus far, and that would extend his lead in the Delta Championship by quite a bit. Considering he came into this one basically tied with Inagaki and Ost, that's a huge win. We'll look back to the battle for the overall lead. Does Fernandez try something on this lap? He does. Trying to get it stopped. Hits the apex. McKenzie is back ahead, and now Polasek is in. This is exactly what McKenzie wanted to see as they come to the white flag. McKenzie's in the lead. Polasek and Fernandez are wheel to wheel for P2 just behind. And Fernandez will have the outside line through turn 1. Sometimes that is the better one to be on because you get the better run in the preferred line up the hill. And he does have a nose ahead of the 45. Can he force the issue? Yes, he cuts the nose across and he stays in second. That is probably going to be it for Polasek's chances of winning this race. But can Fernandez even close the gap back up to McKenzie at this point? Looking further back, Christian Ost is trying to make a late move on Raymond 2 in the last lap for P14 overall. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll jump back to the leaders. Only about 5 turns to go here. McKenzie's got 4/10 to Fernandez behind. I'm sure he'll be making sure to get a good exit out of turn 7. It's still a 4/10 gap. That's not going to be close enough for Fernandez, I think, to really attempt something. So this could be it. McKenzie leads them down the backstretch. He has 4 career victories at this track. If he pulls this off, he will match Significant for the most all-time at the circuit. Into the final chicane with the white flag waving. Fernandez tries it. He gives it everything he's got, but he couldn't get the nose in. And out of the final corner under the Factory Fox sign, Polasek brought it home for Yellow Flag Motorsports in race 1. But for race 2, it's the home hero, Logan McKenzie. 5 wins at Road Atlanta. And he brings home the victory in the second race of the day. Fernandez P2, Polasek P3, Spencer Clark around the final corner. He completes his Delta sweep at Road Atlanta and launches himself much further ahead in the Delta title fight. We watch the rest of these cars come across here. There goes 2. He did lose out to Ost there in the end. That was actually a photo finish, him and Ost. That is a 300th of a second gap, so very close for them in the end. Rakowski just ahead of the line, just ahead of Jason Lynn. Some very close finishes here in the end in what was a very carnage-filled race. McKenzie and Fernandez, that was a tough fight. Fernandez will have to get that first career victory another day. I think in the end, this is going to be a wash. Maybe in the end, a slight advantage. Actually, it will be an advantage. Polasek will extend his championship lead. Hendricks had trouble. McKenzie didn't have a great first race where the majority of the points are. But Polasek and McKenzie, your race winners. We'll be right back. We'll switch over to the results here and get a final look at the standings from Road Atlanta. We are halfway through the season now, officially past that point. Let's take a look at your results from Road Atlanta. In the first heat, Michael Polasek brought home the victory, 6 seconds advantage over Gonzalo Fabi, and then Micah Hendricks rounded out the podium. Then you had Fernandez, Schenk, Saralegui, McKenzie, Harrison, Mayer, and Luzon. Then in the Delta class, Spencer Clark brought home the victory with a near 20-second advantage over Brian Inagaki and Fuad Al-Rijla. Then Castillo and Murray round out the top 25. The rest of the results further on down. Sedano, Ost, Son, Bobasini, Gilbert, Rakowski, Lynn, Rick Meyer, Mitchell, Saab, and 2. And then in the second race, Logan McKenzie ekes one out just ahead of Fernandez and Polasek. Then Saralegui, Gorman, Almeida, Bertolucci, Zepka, Acatella, and Spencer Clark rounds out the top 10, as well as being your Delta winner in race 2. And then Thomas, Darnell, Akers, Christian Ost slipping into P2 in the Delta class for the second race. 2, Murray, Sedano, Rakowski, Lynn, Rick Meyer, Al-Rijla, Gilbert, Castillo, Inagaki down in 24th. That's also going to be a big help for Spencer Clark. Micah Hendricks, Mitchell, Mayer, Son, Luzon, Carr, Fabi down in 31st there at the end. Harrison, Schenk, the Slug, Bonvicini, and Saab. That second race especially, a lot of names you wouldn't expect to see towards the bottom. Delta drivers were able to pick up a lot of extra points this week. For our winners, Polasek and McKenzie, their championship advantages are extended, but Polasek especially, he has one hand on that Season 12 trophy. For the second half of the season, he's going to be looking to close his other hand around it. That is all the racing from Road Atlanta done. Next week, we have an hour of racing from Donington Park coming at you. We will see you there. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.